All right, you've made it to week 4 in our training. Today, we are going to talk about something that will absolutely make or break you in the real estate world. That's negotiation. You can know all there is to know about contracts. You can know your marketing. You can have it all down pat. You can get all of the appointments you want. But if you can't negotiate, you're going to end up leaving so much money and so many opportunities on the table. It's not even funny. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's get some ideas. Think of negotiation like learning to dance. If you're kind of stiff and awkward, or you're trying to lead when you're supposed to be following, or you don't know the rhythm or anything like that, people can feel it. They can definitely feel it and they can see it. By the end of this video, I want you to feel like you are Fred Astaire, that you can step onto the dance floor with anyone and hold your own. So how do we do that? Well, some of it takes practice, some of it takes experience, but there are some tips and tricks that I can share and some stories that will help you on your way. First, let's go ahead and lay the foundation. I will never forget one of my first big negotiation flubs. The buyer wanted this house so bad. It had the wraparound porch. It had the stuff, the kitchen of her dreams. It was amazing. But one thing she did first off was she actually mentioned that right in the house to the seller, that this was her dream home and she wanted it so super bad. Okay, that was a mistake of mine, number one, because I did not explain to the buyer before we went out looking to houses not to do that, because that literally took away all of my negotiation tips, tricks, and everything, because she literally laid it all out there. Okay, it was like, I have to have this house. Okay, well, great. Now you're going to get skinned alive. That's just fantastic. You don't even want your buyers to say anything like that. In fact, if the less they say, the better inside of a home, because I can almost promise you that the sellers these days are listening, okay? They have Ring cameras, they have audio devices all over the place. They know exactly what you're saying about their home, whether you see them or not. This is a serious thing. So I try to remind all of my buyers before we go out looking at houses to please not say anything about the house. A small compliment here or there, like, oh, that's a nice couch or something like that. Oh, those are lovely windows. Perfectly fine. That's a little bit of feedback. Not, oh my goodness, I will die if I don't have this home. Huge difference. Huge difference. So, yeah, that was my mistake. So definitely get your buyers on board not to hurt the negotiation before you even get started, because that seller, he thought his house was the Taj Mahal and now he is assured of it. They were like $20,000 apart. Younger me, I went in swinging, trying to argue him down with comps and all this other stuff. And you know what happened? He slammed the door shut. Like, we lost the house. Buyer was so upset that she didn't even want to go house shopping. I, to this day, have no idea whether she bought a house or not. Negotiation isn't about who yelled the loudest. It's about understanding what the other side cares about. If I had slowed down and asked the seller, I may have found out that he didn't even care about the price as much as moving quickly for a job transfer or something like that. I could have worked the timeline instead. So instead of just spouting off stuff, ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can, because knowledge is power in negotiations. The more you know, the better chance you have of winning the negotiation. It's when I say winning, let's just go ahead and take a moment there, because winning it's not a win-lose situation. It's a win-win situation. And I know that's overused into oblivion, but that's really true. You don't want somebody to walk away feeling like the loser, okay? That's not going to be a really great look for anybody, okay? You want everyone to be content, if not happy, about what they got out of the deal, okay? So really figuring out that lever of what the parties truly want, that's what matters the most, okay? There's a fantastic book to help you really understand this principle. It's How to Win Friends and Influence Others I have read it and reread it so many times, and it's helped me not only in negotiation with business, but it's also helped me a lot with my family and understanding that asking questions and finding out what's really important so that I can, really speak to that more so than, really doubling down on something that's really not important at all to that person is huge. Okay. That's just the basic of negotiation is you want this and you want the same thing. Let's just go ahead and figure out how we're going to do that so that everybody is content with this transaction or, whatever it may be. So, book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence Others. Please listen to it on audio or go ahead and read it. Read it over and over again if you want. I cannot tell you how many times I've read it. It's fantastic. All right, let's talk about preparation. When I say that knowledge is power, I truly, truly mean that. Preparation and that knowledge and everything is basically your armor. Okay. One of my agents once walked into a negotiation blind, no comps, no neighborhood stats, no clue about the seller situation or even the buyer situation. The other agent ate her alive. Okay. It was like sending a knight into battle with absolutely no armor. She came back frustrated, embarrassed, and rightly so. A little bit of taking the time to figure out the facts of the situation would have done wonders and would have probably changed it completely around. When you know the numbers, the concessions, and the hot buttons, you don't have to argue. You just present the facts and go from there. Okay? Knowing the person on the other side is huge. So if you're cooperating with another agent, knowing that other agent is really, really helpful. You can find out what their stats are, how often they sell a home. You can find out a lot of things just from the MLS alone or just talking to them. If you have time, maybe go and grab a cup of coffee with them and, get to know them a little bit better so that you know how to negotiate with them the best. Okay. You don't have to be adversaries. You both want the same thing. Neither of you get paid if that house doesn't sell, right? So sitting down and making sure that's the main important thing is that both of you can help your customers is huge. So get that through your head that you are friends, not enemies. You're not even frenemies. You want to negotiate and you want to work hard to get that negotiation through because not only do both of you want this to happen, but also the buyer and the seller want this to happen. Okay. They wouldn't have entered into a contract or wouldn't have put forth an effort by putting forth an offer if they didn't want that same thing. So your job is to get everybody on board with that and try and figure out what information you can glean in order to help make that happen. So you find out the stats of the agent, you figure out the stats of the neighborhood, you figure out the comps of the neighborhood, you present information to the buyer, you present information to the seller and or their agent. All of that is huge. Okay. Try to get as much knowledge towards them as possible. And again, do not rely just on the sales price. So many people do that. But what if it's not the sales price? What if it's the net? Do you know how to do a net proceeds sheet? Most title companies will give you software to do it for you. Okay. But figuring out not just what that offer is, but what the bottom line is, what that person is going to be able to put right in their pocket, that may be more important. If you can figure out how to do the deal so that they get to put more money in their pocket, maybe that's the thing. Or maybe it's the timeline. Maybe they have to move and they are on a timeline. Maybe that's going to put your buyer's offer ahead further just because your buyer is willing to close earlier or something like that, or maybe give them more time to move, or maybe live in the house for 30 days after or something like that. There's a lot of different things you can negotiate. Don't get stuck too much on the actual purchase price. All right. Let's say you have the buyer side and the buyer comes in and they're like, I'm going to do a lowball offer on anything and everything. Okay, well, that's fun. So what I would say to the buyer is, I totally get wanting to come in lower, but the homes in this neighborhood are closing at 96% of asking. Again, knowing your numbers is important. If we go too low, the seller won't even blink. They're not even going to take a look at your offer and may even be insulted and won't look at another offer that you present. So let's, really consider what the houses are actually selling for and be in the market, because the seller, we want them to actually take a look at your offer and go from there. Okay. So again, having that information is huge. Okay. Now, to say that you're not going to submit a lowball offer, I would not do that if I were you. I would go ahead and submit it and let the market educate your customer, okay? If you're just like, that's not going to go anywhere, I'm not even submitting that, okay, then you're a jerk. But if you're like, absolutely, I will go ahead and present it. I will go ahead and submit that offer. It only takes a few minutes to write up a contract, for crying out loud. Go ahead and do it. And then when they get shot down horrifically, just be like, I am so sorry. But you know what? On the other hand, they are telling you the truth. That is what the market is. So if you're trying to get a steal of a deal, you might need to look at some houses that need, they're more like fixer uppers, or, maybe some foreclosures or something like that. But if you're trying to get the top house in a neighborhood and you're trying to lowball for bottom of the barrel instead, that could be seen as insulting and they won't look at your offer. But again, I am here for you and I will go ahead and submit whatever offers you decide to make. You have all the control, all the power here, which is totally the truth. All right, what about the seller side? So let's say the seller is like, I want all the money. Okay, well, that's fun also. So maybe say something like, well, the average home here is sitting for 90 days, which is true. Yours has an updated kitchen and a new roof, and that puts you above the competition. So let's lean more into that instead of just the price, okay? I want you to get the market value of the home, but at the same time, the market is what dictates that. It's what somebody is willing to pay for your home. So let's find out what they're willing to pay. I once had a seller who kept saying, price is non-negotiable. But I noticed that every time I mentioned the moving date, they kind of leaned in. That was the tell, all right? Pay attention to the body language. That is 80% of the actual language, okay? Price wasn't really the thing. Timing was. We ended up closing earlier than usual, and the seller gave up $8,000 in concessions without even blinking, okay? Knowing that was the tell is huge. Watch their body language. Watch their tone. Watch what lights them up, okay? That's where the real negotiation lives. Okay, try something like, well, besides price, what's most important to you about this deal? Then do something extremely difficult and very important. Shut up. Shut up. Let them talk. It's not about you talking all the time and trying to convince people. Okay, one of the most important things that I've ever learned in negotiation is when to have uncomfortable silences. Was that uncomfortable for you? It wasn't for me. I have learned to be comfortable in uncomfortable silences, and that puts me in a key place in negotiations, okay? So use that. It sometimes takes a little bit of practice, but learn to shut up and let them talk, okay? Sometimes people will be so uncomfortable with a silence that they will fill it with stuff that they didn't mean to tell you, and it's going to be very good for the negotiations. So one thing that I would recommend There is something called Plod, which has little devices like on your necklace, or you can put it in your pocket or stuff like that, or you can just use it on your phone. But it actually will record the listing presentation or the buyer consultation or whatever. And of course, let the person know that you're recording. Just say, this is my transcription AI so that I can, have notes later. But what's really cool about this particular AI, it not only will record in English, it actually has like over 100 languages that it'll record in. And what's interesting is people, especially if they speak a different language, will say things very brutally, honestly, in their language to each other, but not to you, which is really funny. I found that to be really, really hilarious. Long before Plod, I actually speak Spanish, and so people will say things to each other and just automatically assume, because I have blonde hair, that I don't speak Spanish. So they'll say some of the most interesting stuff, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Now I know that. So it's really helpful. So this does actually record in it'll transcribe into different languages. What else it will do will actually give you tips about your listing presentation and your buyer consultation on things you need to work on, which is huge. That's like having your own personal real estate coach right there with you at every appointment. So make sure to turn something like that on. Another thing it'll do, though, and I have no idea how that works. I am not that smart. But what it will do is it'll actually tell you what's being unsaid. Okay, so it'll say things like, you know what, the seller really is worried about the kitchen being dated, and they never even talked about the kitchen, or that you could remember, or the seller is really worried about the timeline, for whatever reason. So it'll pick up very, very, very subtle things, and it will actually let you know. And then all you have to do is the next conversation you have with them, go ahead and address that. It is huge. It's really like having a little assistant there that's just watching body language and listening and stuff. Now, it doesn't record body language, but there are nuances, to every conversation, and it takes that into account and actually gives you a transcription of it. So really kind of interesting, but also to have a summary of your listing presentation. So you actually remember, wait, was there a garden tub or a jacuzzi tub in the master? Like, you're trying to keep up with everything. You're trying to answer questions. You're trying to do this, that, or the other. Maybe when you're talking to the buyer, you're trying to make sure of your timeline in your area, and you're already looking in MLS for them and stuff like that. And really what's important is the schools for them. So, it keeps track of stuff like that. So I would highly recommend that one as a really true AI assistant tool for salespeople. All right, moving on. We're going to go ahead and get into tactics and real world stories. A buyer one time offered about, good grief, I think it was about $15,000, $20,000 under asking. The seller's agent asked if we would go higher, and I didn't answer right away. I just kind of stayed quiet and said, I don't think they will, and then just kind of kept quiet. Well, he filled the silence by saying, well, maybe if you come up like 5,000, they'd go ahead and take it. Now, was he supposed to tell me something like that? No, but silence saved my client $10K. 15, I don't know. It was a lot. You basically want to make sure that you leave room for the other person to talk. Okay. So many agents think it's all about talking and talking and talking and talking, when really 80% should actually be listening. Okay. Listen. You have 2 ears, one mouth. That's a saying for a reason. All right. I had a seller who was totally done. Didn't want to budge on repairs. Didn't want to do anything to the house. It was, I don't know, a la 1960 when you walked in, even though that was before my time. Didn't want to do anything that. Instead of caving, I just said, well, if the buyer waives the small repair requests, can you cover the closing costs? Well, for some reason, that was perfectly okay. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And yet for that seller, it wasn't. It was just not. Both sides walked away feeling like they won something. So apparently the seller had done a lot of repairs to the home and was just kind of over it. Have you ever had a car where you're just like, I have changed this, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. I don't want to do anymore. I don't care. If you even say the word car repair, I will literally puke. So that's how he was with the house. He just didn't want to even hear it. But it wasn't about the repairs. It wasn't about the financial. It was just that he didn't want to hear it. He was just over that particular thing. So if you have, the buyers coming in and they're like, well, there's this thing and that thing and blah, blah, blah. And let's talk about a pipe under the sink that's whatever. No, that's wrong mode. Just, go ahead and say, hey, can you cover closing costs? Oh yeah, of course. It's the same amount of money. It's the same amount of money. So again, if we agree to X, can you do Y? So when you are negotiating, get that line in your head. If we agree to blank, can you do blank? And then everybody wins. Cool. And then shut up and let them talk all the way through it. Okay. Sometimes they just have to think as they talk. Okay. That's fantastic. When you start strong, you set the frame. A seller I represented once asked for, it was about $360,000 for his house. That was a cookie cutter, just the same as anything else in the neighborhood. But the houses in the neighborhood were going for about $300,000. Everyone thought it was crazy, but by leading with confidence and backing it with data, we were in fact able to close at 307. So it did in fact close for more, but it did take a lot of negotiation and a lot of selling skills to get that one under contract and done. So it is possible. It is definitely possible. What I would like for you to do is to do some role-playing exercises. Buyer wants to lowball. Agent's going to say something like, I love that idea, but let's play this out. If we come in that low, the seller may not even counter. What if we structure it like this? Will you do that? So awesome. Then also do sellers. Don't forget sellers. Sellers refusing concessions. They don't want to lower their price, something like that. Say, totally understand holding firm on your price. Let's see if we can keep price strong, but ease up on closing costs or repair credits. That way you walk away with your number and the buyer still gets what they want and everybody wins. Record yourself practicing these lines. Do it in a mirror if you can, or just on a video if you want. Check and see if you sound confident. Do you sound apologetic? Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to, no. Be confident. You know what you are doing, okay? 50% of it is in negotiation is the words. 50% of it is tone and body language as well. Some common mistakes that you can see are maybe talking in a negotiation until you've literally talked yourself out of a deal. Okay? Sometimes the best thing you can do is to say nothing. Practice with your loved ones or just friends or whatever. And also remember, don't take it personal. Okay. It's business. If the other side gets heated and all upset and freaking out, stay calm. Your job is to bring people down, not to hype them all freaking out. Try and figure out what the clients and customers and everyone in between is actually wanting. What are their non-negotiables? What's really and truly important to them, and go from there. Here's what I want you to remember. Negotiation is not a battle. It's a puzzle. Your job is to figure out which pieces matter most to your customers and the other side. If you practice this, you're not just going to close more deals, but you're going to actually create smoother transactions and happier clients. And that's what gets you repeat business. Remember, this is not a one and done kind of situation. You're going to be in this business for the rest of your life, right? So you want to have repeat customers, which means happy customers, which means customers that are going to refer you to other customers. So practice the scripts, role play the scenarios, record it, go out there and dance that negotiation dance with confidence, And if you want more down-to-earth real estate training like this, make sure to click the subscribe button because I will be here again tomorrow. Bye.